Is this going to be used as a video as well?
Yes.
Okay, no picking my nose then.
Are you ready? All right. Hi there, I'm Nora Dunn, and I'm otherwise known as the Professional Hobo, and welcome to my series where I speak with ordinary people who have extraordinary travel lifestyles, remote careers, and stories to share with you today. As usual, I would really appreciate it if you were to leave some comments and like these videos. Let me know what you like and what you'd like to see more of. Also, check the description for a bevy of resources, including a checklist of 10 crucial things you must do before you travel long term. My guest today is Hannah Dixon. She's a virtual assistant coach and matchmaker running one of the largest and longest running virtual assistant training platforms. It's called Digital Nomad Kit. She's trained over 12,000 VAs who go on to work with top entrepreneurs and thought leaders. Hannah focuses on creating standards of excellence in the remote workspace with regards to ethical pay and diversity and creating meaningful communities. And I'm really excited to talk to her about what that means. This has elevated her position as becoming the go-to person for hiring ethically and intelligently. She's also been on the road full-time for the last 13 years. So she's a staple in the digital nomad scene and as such has been featured everywhere. And I found out about Hannah because she and I were featured in an article together. Welcome, Hannah. I'm so excited to chat with you today.
Thank you so much for that lovely intro. I'm very excited to be here with you.
Brilliant, brilliant. Now, you have just surpassed me. I traveled full-time for 12 years before I ended up getting a home base. So you've just surpassed me. And the reason I found out about you is because we were both featured in an article and it stuck out for me that you've been traveling for 12 years. So what was the inspiration to hit the road full-time and how have the last 12 years or 13 years looked? Have they evolved and changed over time?
Oh, absolutely they have. Can I talk about the first spark that got me on the road?
Please, yes.
I was actually 16 at the time, which was not 13 years ago. I'm much older than that. But I was 16 at the time and it was the school holidays were coming up and I didn't know what to do with myself. And I remember talking to my art teacher, who I was very close with, and I was talking with my best friend, William, with my art teacher. And I said, what are we going to do this summer? Should we just get summer jobs? It's 6 weeks. What do we do? And I had my passport, my first adult passport. And my teacher was like, why don't you go to Europe? Why don't you just take a train trip around Europe? And I was like, oh my God, we can do that. That's a thing. And then of course we did. We went with no money. It was terrible. We had a great time, but we ran out of money and lots of things happened. But that was a spark for me. I was like, oh, the world is my oyster. I can go anywhere. And I was sold for life from then. So after that, I did the whole school thing. I never went to college. So at 18, 19 years old, I went to New York to work for a year. And that was it. I was just on the road from then on out. I left that job and then I started traveling doing workaways, which is help-ex, woofing type thing. I was working on farms and bars and hostels, you name it, all over the world, mostly in Europe, actually, because it was quite easy to hop around with little money. You get driven to the next bus stop and it's very easy to do it that way. And then I started working online about 7.5 years ago now. So I was working basically for free. I didn't have any money for the first years I was traveling. I would occasionally pop back to the UK where I was born and grew up. And I would work in a bar for 2 or 3 months, get some money, hit the road again. So I don't know if that counts if I've been on the road continuously, but 2 months at home here and there didn't really bother me. And then 7.5 years ago, I was actually in Italy and I was helping renovate this old 15th century home. It was really beautiful. And I was doing plastering and learning how to do all this sort of construction stuff, which I wasn't very good at, but it was fun. And I realized one day, my friends, a long time ago, used to work in fashion for 1 year. And it was high-end fashion, haute couture, Givenchy, all that stuff. You can't tell looking at me now. But I had friends in Milan from that time that I'd worked in that job. And so they invited me when I was in Italy to come to a party with them and come stay with them for the weekend. And so I arrived in Milan at the train station and my friend was like, we're going straight out. What are you wearing? And I was like,
what are you seeing?
These cement covered clothes, of course. And she was like, oh, wow, we need to get you new shoes. And I was like, I can't afford new shoes. And something sparked in my mind. I was like, I love what I do and I love traveling, but I want to have things as well and be able to afford things. And so that was at that point, I actually had a little bit of a meltdown. I was like, I'm going to go back to the UK. get a job, do the whole normal thing. And so that's what I did. I went back to the UK, did get a job in a bar. Then I met someone who worked online, and again, ding, 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 I can take this anywhere. And so I learned everything I could and skipped forward. I've been traveling a lot differently. I've been working online since then and taking my time a bit more and getting involved in the digital nomad community. And yeah, I skipped forward to 2021. Then obviously the pandemic had me grounded for a year, but I just made the hop over to Mexico, and I'll be here probably for at least 6 months now. That was a long story, very short.
That was awesome. That was the best encapsulation of 13 years that I could possibly imagine getting. And there are many directions that I want to go with you today. I want to talk to you a little bit more about the evolution of your remote career. I want to talk to you about the lifestyle and the sort of work that you do now. But I want to stick with the your travel lifestyle. Okay. And I read in an article that you were interviewed, and you said one of my favorite lines, which is, wherever you go, there you are. And it was in reference to, motivations for travel, why people travel, and also the struggles that you had with emotional issues and mental health. And you also referred to, very cryptically, but I caught on to it, you referred to having a big breakthrough that then changed and informed how you traveled and why you traveled. Would you be willing to share a little bit more about what that was?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I guess a little bit of context is that I've had depression my entire life. It's something that I've been diagnosed with by various doctors in different countries, because that's how it is when you travel. And so it's something I've always dealt with, and lots of anxiety issues and all kinds of stuff going on there. But I think that if I'm honest, I was running away for a long time, and as soon as things would start to crumble in one place, I'd be like, okay, let's go to the next place, because that will make me happy. As humans, we're always like, when we have this or when this happens, I'll be happy. And obviously that's not the case. So having that realization was a big thing for me. But actually what triggered all this was I was having a year where I have a skin condition that comes up when I'm really stressed. And it came up really badly. It was actually when I was in Mexico City, where I am right now, 3 years ago. And it was really bad. And I didn't see anyone for 3 months. And I was plunged into like a deep depression, isolation. And then beyond that, throughout the rest of the next 2 years, I kind of spent in like a very deep depression. And what happened, I ended up losing my long-term partner at the time. And I was in Bangkok on my own, and very, very much so standing on the end of my balcony, wondering if I wanted to end it all. So it was a pretty low moment for me. And actually, if I'm honest, what changed and what got me into a place where I'm feeling a lot healthier now is the pandemic. And I know that sounds crazy, but being grounded for the last 14 months was the stability I needed, and to come back home to myself and to do some work on myself and to get therapy and not run anymore. It was like, I know that I'm still going to travel because that's me. That's my lifestyle. I'm excited to be here now, but I needed that. I needed some time to be like, stop running and face this stuff finally, and like really go inwards. Stop taking the prescription drugs. Stop doing this. Stop doing that. Actually look at what's going on here. And that gave me the time to do that. So while it's like, maybe doesn't sound like a big thing, it was just a breakup. It wasn't necessarily the breakup. It was the trigger of like, oh my God, you're alone now. And now you have to face this stuff. And why are you even in Thailand? Why are you doing this? It was kind of like a identity crisis for me. So yeah, that's, I don't know if that covers.
That resonates with me on so many different levels. So, one of the things that people often say is that if you travel, you're traveling to run away from something or to run towards something. And I don't know that that's necessarily true. I always railed against that idea that I was running away from something. I feel like I was, if anything, I was running towards, a different kind of lifestyle and connection and whatnot. But I also realized, with a healthy dose of retrospect, that I have also wrestled hardcore with depression for probably decades now. Yeah. And I've self-medicated in different ways. Yeah. And one of those forms of medication was travel. I certainly do recognize that it was a form of therapy. It was perhaps a form of avoidance. I'm not sure. And also for me, I actually had a wake-up call in the pandemic. And my wake-up call was a little bit different because actually I had to hit rock bottom. So once I was, I have a wonderful, cozy home that was meant to be a home base from which I would just continue to hop around the world and just come back every once in a while and say hi to people. Yeah. And then here I was locked down in this place and completely isolated and having to deal with all the demons, right? Yeah. Having to deal with all my motivations and having to deal with what at the time had been just a career that had, all travel industry, anything related to the travel industry just collapsed completely, including my own livelihood. And that actually, I had my balcony moment during the pandemic. And I was also able to see a greater context eventually. I was able to gain that hope that there would be a future. And it was through the help of the same sort of thing, intense self-care and therapy. And for me, medication as well. I resisted medication for decades probably, and then finally took the plunge and actually realized that it helped me move the needle in a way that I realized, wow, this is what life is supposed to be like. Is this how people really think and
live?
Is
this how people go about their day?
Is this, like it was kind of, so and I don't often admit that. I just can't believe I just admitted that here, that I've gone on medication. Here I am. So yeah, and I think that that's not a bad thing to have those realizations. No. And to hit those moments.
Yeah, I sometimes think like now that I wouldn't say I'm fully through things, because I think it's always it's managing what's going on. It's not really, you're not getting rid of anything, it's managing what's happening. And I think that when you're in a point where you're like healthily, if that's a word, healthily managing what's going on, you can look back and say, I needed to hit rock bottom for me to actually do this work. And so I'm actually grateful for that time. And I don't know if you have that same feeling, but I'm grateful. And because it gives you so much sense of resilience. Like I did that, I got through that. And I know I can get through a lot more now. I'm finding myself a lot less like worried about things. I don't know, like even though I've traveled all this time, I still get times where I'm really nervous, like to talk to someone in the street or to order a coffee on my own, or, that's just anxiety coming up. But I'm finding I'm here in Mexico. I don't speak Spanish. I got to learn, but I'm like not anxious about anything. And I'm like, I feel like I've removed some layers of crap there because I went through that. I can go through a lot more now, like without worry, if that makes sense.
Wow, brilliant. How do you feel that this may, obviously to feel less anxious about a lot of the experiences that travel present us, it's all foreign and it can be very anxiety inducing. And I think that that's one of the rushes of travel is kind of getting through those moments, facing those fears, overcoming these obstacles that are always in our way. And I think that for me was that dopamine rush that I needed. Yes. I read that you tend to move about every 6 months. Is that still what your plan is to set those home bases?
I think everything's dictated by the pandemic right now. I do want to be responsible, but I knew that I had to get out of Austria. I intend to stay here for 6 months, see how the world is. Maybe I'll stay for a year. That's kind of how I'm feeling right now. I'm okay. I've recognized that I'm okay spending a bit longer in places. I think what's more important to me is that the place excites me, and this excites me. So I could be here 6 months, a year, maybe even a year and a half before I'll probably move on. But then if things get back to normal, I'll probably do 6 months again. Yeah.
Well, and that pace, to someone who is new to remote work and long-term and full-time travel, 6 months in a place sounds like forever. And you and I both well know that if you're working full time, the pace of travel actually has to be quite slow. Do you have, does your work-life travel balance lifestyle look like?
It's changed over the years for sure, especially depending on the type of work I've been doing. But in general, I try to structure it that I take time for myself in the mornings, whether that's going for a walk or even just lounging around in the apartment or house or wherever I am. And then I'll work for like a good solid sort of 3 or 4 hours. And then the whole afternoon is mine again and the evening's mine. And I do try to take 3 days off a week completely. Sometimes it doesn't work, but it is pretty flexible. Of course, if there's calls coming up, especially when you're changing time zones, that kind of thing, there has to be a little bit of flexibility there. But I do have some structures in place, like mornings are mine, like non-negotiable. Evenings are mine, non-negotiable, unless it's something really important that like I should be there for. Or if someone's paid me a tremendous amount of money, I'll be there. But yeah, generally speaking, like 3 to 4 hours a day, 4 or 5 days a week. In the middle of the day, when at the hottest part of the day. I'm ginger. I don't really like the sun. So
you and me both. Wow. So that's fascinating. You have now been able to organize everything so you are working maybe 20 hours a week. tops.
Max, yeah.
Wow, brilliant. So you had a few different remote careers along the way, right? You were doing copywriting on Upwork, you were running a company in SEO and web development, which actually, incidentally, I read didn't go so well. You were working as a virtual assistant, and then ultimately you created Digital Nomad Kit.
Yes.
So what have you learned about remote work along the way? I'm pretty sure you didn't work 20 hours a week through all of those careers. So what has been the evolution of your own remote work career?
I think for me, one of the things that has been like the main thread for everything has been, how do I make this sustainable? How do I make this work in a way that I'm actually fulfilled? Because, there's the dream, there's the whole remote dream, like, I'm going to work from the beach and I'm going to do this and I'm going to have all this freedom. And in reality, that's not always the case. So for me, like a big part of my journey has been, how can I make this as close to that ideal as possible, without sort of sacrificing my mental health, while still providing a good service, being useful, having a community, enjoying the place I'm in. And so that's always been the theme. And so I've always been working towards that. And I would say I'm getting pretty close to that. And now I'm at the point where I have free time and I'm like, what do I do with this time? Should I do something else? So it's kind of cool. And I think that started really from when the first thing I ever got paid for online was a gig on, I don't know if it was Upwork or Elance or one of those gig platforms, but it was $5. And it was to write an article about the 26 best cities in the US to bring up children, because I would know about both of those things. So it took me about 3 days to write, and I got paid $5 for it. At the end of that, I did a good job. It was good considering my lack of knowledge. At the end of that, I did say like, hey, if you want to tip me, you can. And they were like, it was $5. And I was like, oh, wow. Like, that's pretty shitty. Like, people are getting paid this kind of money to do this kind of work. That's crazy. And so since then, like, I've had this thing of like, you need to be paid well, you need to like upskill and like demonstrate your value to people and like show people what you can do, and not just like use these platforms and hope someone's like. And one of my biggest things I always say is you don't apply to jobs, you create opportunities. So that's been a big thing for me. Like creating opportunities from the get-go has been like my biggest incentive. Like, what can you do? Like playing with it, like what can you create for yourself online? Like there's so many opportunities, there's so many ways. And I think that's something that I've learned about remote work, is that there are so many ways to make money online. And I think even beyond what you can imagine, there's more ways to make money online than there actually exists. Everyone has something that they could package up and sell. Everyone has a course they could make. Everyone has a service they could do for someone. And whether they know that or not is another thing. And that's what I really enjoy about my work now, is I get people to sort of think about themselves and go, oh, I do have something I could sell. Let me give that a shot. Because if it works, like, you can create a cool lifestyle for yourself. It might be difficult at the beginning. I think that's something a lot of people don't realize, is that you will have to put the hard work in. There's no 4-hour work week. There just isn't. So you do have to do the work, but you could do work that you enjoy. And I think that's something that I learned about, that you don't have to just get what you're given. It's very different to like, the traditional workspace. You apply for the job, you get the job, you're stuck with that manager, you're stuck with those coworkers you hate. When you work for yourself, you can choose a lot of stuff, and it is more difficult at the beginning, but once you have things figured out after a couple of years, you can choose a lot, and it's a lot more satisfying. And I think that's like kind of been my goal. It's just like, how can I make this sustainable and satisfying and fulfilling, and then help other people get there as well?
That was great. And it's opened up a whole new series of questions, but it is a perfect segue into Digital Nomad Kit, which is an incredible service, because you are not only, and I'll start with the remote work side. You take people, aspiring remote workers, aspiring virtual assistants, you train them, you help them be very effective. But then you also provide a matchmaking service for people who are hiring. So they can either post listings, job listings, or they can actually use you as a matchmaker to create those matches. Let's start with the remote work side, because I regularly have people writing to me who say, oh my gosh, I want this travel lifestyle. I want to work remotely, but I don't know what to do. Mm-hmm. What would you say to someone who's in that position?
In those very, very beginning stages, I would say, like, literally get a pen and paper out and write down everything you've done professionally, and then everything you enjoy doing in your life, whether that's professional or just personal. So the reason I ask people to do that is because you'll start to see, like, okay, like, I've done custom, and I don't want you to feel like, if you're doing this exercise, don't feel like you can't put certain things in that professional thing. Like if you're embarrassed of any of your sort of past jobs or anything, like put them down. It's only for you. And a lot of that stuff will be transferable. So, you'll put like cashier or whatever, all your jobs were. And then start writing as well, like what some of the roles were within that job. You know, if you're a cashier, like customer service, money management, you know, all these kinds of things that come under it. And then you want to look at your personal interests as well, because when you're working online, the cool thing is, like I said before, is you get to do things you enjoy doing. And I think it's important to bring that forward, because otherwise it's just having a job again. So you start looking at what you're interested in. So let's say Sally works at Walmart as a cashier, but she loves yoga. So in her spare time, she's at the yoga studio all the time. And so she'll start to identify, okay, like I've got customer service experience and I'm really into yoga. And what that shows you is that you have an inbuilt network already that you could start getting work from. So you could then approach the local yoga studio and say, do you need help with your Facebook page? You know, I've noticed that there are questions gone unanswered. There are negative reviews on there that haven't got any responses to them. Or I'm noticing your Instagram is not very kept up with. You know, there are opportunities in that. So again, creating opportunities. So I would say, look at what your experience is, look what you're interested in, and then try and marry them and think about who your existing audience is, because you do have an existing network. We all do, whether it's your life network, your family's your network, your friends, your network, the people you went to school with, your network. So there's always going to be people in your network who are willing to either hire you or refer you out. And if you have interest, most of us have interest. I wouldn't say, what's your passion? Because that's terrifying. But what are you interested in right now? What are you up to? What do you like doing? Those are clues where you should start looking, because you'd be enjoying the work you're doing. And you do have a network of people who trust you, because that's your immediate network. So that's where I would say someone brand new starting. So there's actually a Venn diagram that I could share with you afterwards if you want. It's just like basically the three things I said mixed together, and the sweet spot is the services you can offer someone. So that's the best way to look at, like, oh yeah, I do have stuff I can sell online right now, and I can ask people about it, and if they would hire me for that, what they would pay for that, and start doing research, because that's also the backbone of anything like this. You do need to ask people if they want it before just offering it and spending all your time promoting something that won't work. I learned that the hard way. So yeah, just sort of marrying, like, what can you do? What do you enjoy? What kind of people might want those things? And then just reach out to them and say, hey, would you want this thing? Like, I know it sounds simple, but it is really quite that simple when you do it. You just have to do it. That's the hard part.
Sure, absolutely. Well, and in the VA, for anyone who doesn't know, VA is just an acronym for virtual assistant. In the VA industry, are there certain openings, certain things, areas, tasks, skills that are in demand that you suggest people brush up on or learn?
Yeah, I think some of the most common ones, definitely social media management, social media marketing. Those are always really big. Every business is on social media. If it's not, they should be, and there's an opportunity there. So social media is a big one. Then customer service is a really big one. But beyond that, some of the really popular ones I would say in the last couple of years are Pinterest management, podcast management, and writing of any sort. So you got SEO writing, newsletter writing, blog writing, copywriting, all those kinds of things. That's a big one too. And I'd like to just say as well, for anyone sitting here thinking, oh, that's a copywriting position, or that's a graphic design position, I like to use the term virtual assistant as an umbrella, because if you're assisting someone virtually, you're a virtual assistant. What you want to call yourself beyond that is just semantics, to me anyway. So I think it's also important to look at, like, the stereotype of a virtual assistant is they just do admin stuff, or whatever the stereotype is. I'm not even sure anymore, because for me, it's the umbrella term for helping people online.
Is this the kind of stuff that you cover in your VA starter kit?
Somewhat. So actually, we're a little bit different to a lot of the other virtual assistant training courses out there, because we don't focus so much on the skills, while we do cover a lot of the tools that you'll be using, and we do have resources for a lot of these specializations. What we focus is on building a business. So a lot of the business know-how. So how to find clients, how to keep clients, project management, marketing, selling, setting up your business, actually managing a business, because a lot of people don't realize that when you're a virtual assistant, you're also a business owner. You're in charge of your bookkeeping, you're in charge of your marketing, you're in charge of the sales conversations. It's not just doing the stuff. So there's a lot of courses where you'll learn the stuff, and you could be the best graphic designer in the world, but if no one knows who you are and you don't know how to get clients, what's the point? So while we do cover a lot of that stuff, the focus is heavily on business building, business management, because I saw a gap for that. And so that's really where the focus is for us. While we do cover that stuff, that's really the direction we took.
What are some productivity tips? Because one of the biggest challenges, I'm sure you've experienced this, Lord knows I've experienced it, work-life balance on the road is a moving target. And there's a couple of problems. I mean, the beauty of being able to work from anywhere at any time is remote work at its best. But
Yes.
the double-edged sword is that also means some people will work everywhere and all the time. It's hard to
Yes.
turn it on, and conversely, it's hard to turn it off. So productivity becomes an issue as well as work-life balance. Do you have any tips for people who are new to remote work in this vein?
Yeah, I do. I think one of the things to realize is that when you work remotely, or you're working from your home or an Airbnb, or, you know, your life and professional life are very much intermingled. And you do need to remember that that enmeshment can be really dangerous. While it's exciting and it's fun and you're doing stuff you like, you do need to remember to take time for yourself. And so actually scheduling time for yourself, if you need to do that, like do that. Just like I do, like my mornings are non-negotiable, my evenings are non-negotiable. And also if you have clients, letting them know those boundaries as well, because you might be changing time zone, but when they can contact you, stays the same. And you might have to adapt to that, but as long as they have sort of parameters, you work when you want, but there's parameters around like when you're available, that's really important to put in place and to actually stick to that. Because if you don't stick to that, they cross the boundary, you're annoyed, then you've got a terrible situation going on here. You need to really set that boundary from the beginning. So that's just in order to help you and your sort of work-life balance. Another thing I would say, there's, I don't know if you want me to go into this, but I have like a sheet that I can give you if you want. It's called the Daily Dump, and it's got a little like poop on it. And this really works for me, and it works for a lot of the people. It's actually part of my course. But it's just like a daily planner, which really helps me. And what it is in the morning when I wake up, and I'm sure a lot of other remote workers have this, you have a brain full of like things you think you have to do or you do have to do. And they're both personal things, work things. Got to call that person, got to get that deadline down, you know, got to take the kid to whatever the kid goes to, you know, all these things. So the daily dump is literally like just a space to dump that all out, whatever comes up. So this is anything, like it's just like a dump, like I said. And then beyond that, then you take 10 minutes and you do something, you have your coffee, you maybe have a real dump, you do what you need to do in the morning. And then I have 4 more boxes from there. And one is the priorities / someone's going to die today if this doesn't happen list. So this is the things that need to be done. So this is like that deadline is approaching today. I need to catch that flight. I need to do this thing. And those are the only things that go there. That is like absolute urgencies. Someone will die if this doesn't happen things. So you put them in there. Then you have the next box, which is the not today Satan list. And that's the thing that you realize and you say, oh, actually, that could be done tomorrow because the deadline's Friday. Let me get through the priorities first. So you put all those things in there. Then you have the delegate list. And this one's really important because when I say delegate, I don't mean hire a VA. I mean, ask your partner to do the washing up. It means ask your kid to get themselves ready for school because you're really busy. That means whatever it means to you, like you can delegate to the people in your life in a way that's healthy. And I think not many people do that, especially women don't do that. So it's something you need to get in the habit of doing. So you got the delegate list. And then beyond that, you've got the, oh no, that wasn't really important. I was just taking up space in my brain for no reason. Let's dump that list entirely. And then what you do is you go through the priority list. And if you get through it, then you can go to the not today Satan list. Otherwise, that goes to tomorrow's priorities. And so that's one thing that I get people to do. And a lot of people find that useful. I use that every single morning. I get up, I dump, I take my morning, and then I write out my priorities and I work to that because that helps me stay productive on the things that actually matter. Because I think it can be a lot, you know, like I said, like that personal, professional enmeshment. So it really helps you separate what's going on and just focus on the priorities. I don't know if that helps, but helps me.
Wow. No, that is absolutely brilliant. I have a similar method. I use Asana in a similar way where I've got and I set the deadlines for the tasks so I can see what has to be done today and what's coming up in the week. So, you know, if I get through today's list, I can do the other things. But I don't quite have I like the style of yours, you know, and also too, the fact that you can, from day to day, you can set new priorities. Mm-hmm. And also you can really critically look at, because for me, it's just a task list with deadlines. I don't have I could delegate this task. I don't have maybe this has been on my list too long. Let's just get rid of it. Sort of thing. So I really like that critical look at everything that needs to be done. And then that's probably the key to how you can actually work 4 hours a day.
Yeah. And I do think that, and just to go back to the delegation thing again, I think that what's really cool is if you get in the mindset of delegation as well, is that you might look at your task list and go, oh, cool, I need to finish that website today or whatever it is that you do. And then you look at the delegate list and say, oh, there's that really like intricate part that's taking me hours. Maybe I could just hire an expert for that hour because it's worth it for me, you know? And I do think it's really good to get into that mindset, because then you can optimize your time and you can get down and you can be quicker at what you do and charge the premium rates because you're delivering a quick, really good service. So just in terms of like the work there as well, I think it's good to look at how you can delegate every aspect of your life if possible, and ethically, because that's something I like to talk about.
Oh my gosh, I can't even believe it's like you're reading my mind that you spoke about delegation and ethics, because that was exactly where I wanted to go. So now we go into the mind of an entrepreneur. It could be a VA as well as an entrepreneur or business owner, whoever it is who is now looking to hire. They have a task they want to delegate. They know they can hire someone, and they go to your site, and they are looking for help. One of the first things that they will find when they come to your site to place their listing or to hire you to matchmake the perfect assistant for them is they will not see currency arbitrage. So there's a lot of people who will hire someone who lives in the Philippines as a perfect example, where the cost of living there is lower. So, someone can hire for less money than they would than someone who lived in the States or Western Europe would be charging for the same service. And you say, no, it doesn't work that way. For the person who's providing the service, they charge according to the value of the service and not how much their rent is. And that is really refreshing that you should take that approach. How did you come to this stance?
Like I said, that $5 gig was the catalyst.
Yeah,
and then just seeing how people were treated in the space. And actually, one of the reasons I started Digital Nomad Kit was because I started a Facebook group, which I had no intention of training VAs. That was never on the radar for me. But what I realized was like, oh my God, people were getting treated like crap and accepting it. This isn't cool. And so people started, and I was earning good money. I was earning at sort of between 5 to 10K every month, 10K on very rarely, but like sort of 5 to 6K every month. And apparently that wasn't usual. And I was like, oh, there's something wrong here, because you can make a lot of money in this field. And so I started looking into it. And the biggest issue was that not only were people just exploiting people in other countries, because that's what it is. We'll talk about why in a minute if you want. There was exploitation going on, but what it was doing was it was actually dragging down the entire industry as well, because it was like downgrading these skills that people were spending all their time learning and then being offered $3-4 an hour. I'm like, this is terrible. This is not minimum wage work, regardless of where you are. This is not minimum wage work. And so, yeah, I mean, that was like, it was a big part of like, okay, I need to step up and say something about this. And I've kind of been advocating for what I consider to be fair pay after a lot of research I've done over the years and VAs that I've trained and with. And what I find really cool and refreshing is that in the last year, and I think that this has been accentuated with the Black Lives Matter movement and a lot of social justice issues that are very prevalent right now, people are looking to hire more ethically. I'm seeing more people coming to me because they want to, which is really nice to see. And I'm like, oh, this is finally landing with people. I love this. So now I'm like, I got to be even louder about it because people are listening. It's really cool. But yeah, in regards to like fair pay, I've done research. I've done research with thousands of Filipino virtual assistants specifically because that is the notorious destination to outsource for cheap. And, you know, I've spoken to them in regards to like what they actually get paid and what they would need to get paid to cover their expenses and live a fulfilling life, because this is one thing that drives me crazy. You get all these heart-centered entrepreneurs making tens of thousands on their programs, yet they're okay paying someone $3-4 an hour. And that person cannot do anything with that. They're stuck. They're like hand to mouth, with big families usually to feed. And so the first thing to unravel with here, it's not minimum wage work. It's just not. This is not the kind of work that is, you know, most of them have computer science degrees in the Philippines, which is something a lot of Western VAs don't have on their side. So they have the education, which is something that we don't have over here often, or at least it's not relevant. Then they also using the same tools that we use. So they're still paying for Dubsado. They're still paying for all these same tools at the same prices as their Western counterparts. So that's another thing to factor in. They pay for their internet. And I mean, I could give you so many statistics on like what it costs to have internet in a home in the Philippines in different areas right now, but it's not cheap. It's like bordering between $60 and $100 a month. Some people are only getting paid $100 a month. This is crazy to me.
Wow.
And then beyond that, I mean, just from the ethical standpoint, for me, what this really looks like, it's like neocolonialism. It's like we're using the old model of exploiting people in other countries for our personal gain. And I would go as far as saying, I'm not stupid. And I know that there is an economical reason that people do that. And there are benefits in hiring in an economical way. And I think you can still do that while being fair. And I think that's the big difference. There's like slave rates and then there's fair rates. And that's where I'm trying to get people to understand. You can hire in the Philippines. If your budget is low, you can hire in the Philippines, but please don't pay less than $12 an hour. Just don't. Like, do it. You know, and I always say, if you want to really like think about it, you could do minimum wage in your country applied, because that's going to be much higher than minimum wage there. But generally speaking, $12, after doing this research with thousands of Filipino VAs, $12 is like what they would need to be earning in order to like live a good life and be able to actually live the kind of life that maybe you're dreaming of in your building. You know, what about giving opportunities to people who don't have them otherwise? That's another thing that I'm big on. It's like, why, if you can't empower other people, like what's the point? Like, you want to give people work because you want to help them. And obviously you want to get help too. That's the reason you're hiring. But when you give people a job, do you not want them to thrive? Or do you want them to be feeling like crap and, you know, not really interested? Because you get what you pay for as well at the end of the day. So we could talk about this for ages. Like, there's so many different directions I could take this, but yeah, $12 an hour is the minimum, friends.
Brilliant. Thank you. Thank you for being, for standing up in this way, and because you've done your research and you are speaking loud and proud in a way that I think a lot of people, this has been this undercurrent, and this extends to big business as well. Like, what are your thoughts about the mass global outsourcing? You know, the call centers in India as a perfect example. What are your feelings about that level of outsourcing as well?
Yeah, I mean, at its core, I find it unethical. However, again, I'm not stupid. I understand there are reasons that people do that, and maybe they wouldn't meet their profits otherwise. But I think there's a way to do it in a way that can be fair. And I think that you know, I wouldn't understand what the rates would be in that particular industry. But companies need to do more research on what is sustainable, because there's a reason that these countries are developing countries. If there's not opportunities there for them, they're seeking to work with Western companies, Western entrepreneurs. There's a reason for that. If you are paying them the same as what they get paid locally, you're not helping lift them out of poverty at all. You're keeping them there. You're keeping people down. And I think that the model in which, you know, has been going, I don't even know how long it's been going on, but this model of exploitation is like since the beginning of white people getting on boats and going places, right? And the fact of the matter is that model is falling apart. And I think that people need to quickly catch up with the fact that people aren't going to accept this kind of behavior anymore. And I think that the VA space is just one space that I'm seeing it being perpetuated, because a lot of people, it's unregulated, it's completely unregulated in the VA space. You know, there isn't any rules for freelancers yet. That's something I would really like to see on an international level. It's very hard to implement, but I think that as people who have privilege, it's our responsibility to put standards in place, and companies as well need to be held accountable for this stuff. So that means doing their research. That means figuring out what would actually be a good living wage here. And if we can't afford that, what benefits could we provide otherwise? You know, could we provide them with healthcare? Could we provide them with retirement plans? Could we provide them with some housing options? Like, there are other ways to give as well that don't necessarily equate to money. If you can help them get out of their situation, that's the most important thing. Otherwise, you're keeping people down, and that's the pinnacle of the colonial mindset. And that I hate that. So yeah, it's unethical, but I think there are ways to make it work. And I think that you can still take advantage of the fact that the economical sort of difference there, you can still take advantage of that. I hate that term, but you can still take advantage of that while being fair and while being just and while doing good in the world. And I think that's what I would like to see big corporations heading towards. And on an individual level, like, that's really where I'm trying to get people to think.
What are other mistakes that people make when they are trying to hire?
I would say not being specific about what they need. And I think a lot of people think like a VA is this magic person that's going to like fix something in their business, which yes, they can be. But you see a lot of these things like looking for a VA, those posts like I spoke about before, looking for a VA, 500 people. Yes, I'm a VA. What kind of VA? What kind of personality? Where in, what time zone? What's your rate of pay? What are the specific tasks that we're doing? What are the tools they're going to be using? So I think a lot of people are just thinking like the VA is a silver bullet, just going to like fix everything. But there are so many different types of VAs with different specialities and different interests. And I think that's the biggest mistake I'm seeing, is people just not being specific about what they need, because you could just hire anyone, but is anyone going to do a great job? No, you want to hire a specific someone. You want to hire someone who cares about what you're doing. Again, going back to if you're starting a VA business, look at what you're interested in, because there are people hiring VAs in that field. And if they're not, there's an opportunity to tell them about the benefits of working with VA. So definitely not being specific about what they need is a big one. Assuming rates based on location or nationality is another one.
I'm going to interject, and I think that once you have hired someone, I think communication is a big problem.
Yes, it is.
Because it's remote, right? So there's only so much. There's a lot that can be lost if your form of communication is written, or Loom videos, or there a lot can be lost, especially as well with multiculturalism. Like it's culturally, things can get lost in translation.
Absolutely. And I think that I always say like at least one call a month is the very, very least. Like actually have a call face-to-face like we're doing right here on the Zoom that we're recording this on, is really important, because you do want to get to know that person. Because I always find that what happens is, if the client is not requesting calls, that the VA should request calls as check-ins as well, because you can completely lose focus. You can completely not care about the person you're working with anymore. And again, if you're building a business and you're building a team, you want to build like a remote team culture. You want to have, something going on there. And if you're not connecting with the people, then they're just some worker somewhere that doesn't care about your business, and that's not ideal. So definitely communication. That's a really good point that you brought up there. And yeah, just having calls, and even like having social calls is something that I do with my team as well. We have, maybe not once a month, but every couple of months we have a call. We just chat, or we play games with Jackbox games or something like that. Just because like we want to like enjoy this community that we're creating within the actual company. And so, yeah, if you can do that, that's wonderful as well. I get a lot of people coming to me not knowing how to phrase job posts, how to be inclusive in their job post, how to, what to charge and that kind of stuff. And that's really why we created the service, is to give people that option of, you can post the job post out, or you can come to me and ask all those critical questions that you have. And then we'll still find you someone. So I think just in general, people just don't know how the process works, and so they just again post in a Facebook group and hope that they get the person of their dreams, which is difficult. And they're going to go for a lot of VAs, and until they get to the point where they go, oh, there's a service for this, or oh, there's like ways to do this that are more effective. So yeah, I think a lot of people just get burned. They say they get burned a lot, but it's actually just ineffective hiring from the start, until they get that VA they really like, because they've learned from the mistakes. So the mistake is really just like not being clear, not knowing where to source VAs, because I always say go to your immediate network first, like who are they working with, and then go to VA specific groups, not just any random groups, and then otherwise going through an agency or someone like myself is the best bet.
So we've touched on various aspects now of what Digital Nomad Kit provides. Let's lay it out for me. Tell me what you do and who you do it for, because you do a lot of different things.
I train people who are virtual assistants to be better virtual assistants, or I train people wanting to work online to become virtual assistants. And I help people hire those virtual assistants. So I help them get work as well. I mean, that's the core of what I do. Beyond that, it's, I do a lot of advocacy for fair pay, diversity. I'd say that's probably it.
And digitalnomadkit.com, is that where people go to employ you in this vein?
Yes.
Cool. What would you, if anything, would you like to leave us with today?
If you're sitting here going, oh, I can't do this, or this is only for certain people, sit down and do that task I said earlier. Just write down all those things that you've done in your past, no matter how small, even if you're just fresh out of college, anything like that. Write down all the things you can do, like that you could do professionally. Then look at all the things you're interested in and go, yes, okay, there's somewhere. And then just start researching. Go in some Facebook groups on Facebook, obviously. Go into some groups on Facebook and just research like virtual assistant groups. Even go into virtual assistant groups and say, is there anyone serving the X industry, something you're interested in. Get something, what are people doing? Check out their websites. See that it's out there. See that it's available to you. Because what I really, really love is when people get that aha moment and they go, yeah, I could do that. Like, I could do that. There are people doing it. There's no reason I couldn't do this. So yeah, just start researching. Start looking at what you've got and start researching what people are doing with that. And then find a place for yourself.
Awesome. Thank you, Hannah, for taking the time to chat with me today. It's been enlightening on a number of levels, and I'm sure it will be for my audience as well.
Thank you for having me.
My name is Nora Dunn. I'm otherwise known as the Professional Hobo, and I will catch you next time.